Darkness spoke to me at night. Part 1. When I was 4 years old, I used to talk to something that lived under my bed. It's strange to think about now because most people don't remember anything from that young. But this memory stayed with me. Even though I pushed it aside for years, it has always been there, waiting for me to acknowledge it again. It started with me waking up in the middle of the night for no obvious reason. My brother slept above me on the top bunk. I would sit up quietly, climb down, and lie flat on the floor so I could whisper into the darkness underneath the bed. There was a voice there. It had a deep, rough tone, like someone trying to speak through a broken radio. I don't remember the exact words we exchanged, only that it felt familiar, like it already knew me, like it had been waiting. Most nights it convinced me to wander with it. I would walk through our apartment half awake, but aware enough to remember the feeling of cold floor and shadows moving behind me. The voice always stayed close to my ear, talking nonstop. I would stand in the living room, in the kitchen, sometimes just staring at the front door as if waiting to leave. My mom would wake up furious, asking what I thought I was doing up at that hour again. I tried telling her I'd been talking to the thing under my bed, that it wanted to show me things, but she brushed it off. She said I was sleepwalking. And since I actually did sleepwalk a lot, everyone assumed that was the explanation. But sleepwalking doesn't come with a second voice. And it doesn't follow you. For a little while, this routine continued. The late-night conversations, the slow walks around the apartment, the sense that I wasn't alone in the dark, but not fully afraid either. It wasn't frightening, until it was. The last night it happened is a memory I can recall with perfect clarity. That night, before I even opened my eyes, I felt a weight shift beneath the bed. The room was colder than usual. The air was so still it felt like the apartment itself was holding its breath. I whispered, "Hello." The voice responded, only this time, it didn't sound patient or playful like before. It sounded angry. It kept asking why I told my mom about it. Every sentence was interrupted by a low, animalistic growl. I could feel vibrations through the floorboards as it moved. I slid off the bed and looked as the darkness under the frame thickened, and then rose up. It crawled out. It wasn't just a shadow now. It was a shape. Long arms, thin legs, eyes that didn't glow but somehow looked alive in the dark. Taller than any adult I'd known, it unfurled itself and towered over me, its head nearly touching the top bunk. It leaned close, and the breath that came out of it wasn't warm like a person's. It was cold. It said I belonged to it at night, that I shouldn't tell anyone about our talks, that I was supposed to listen. Right then, every instinct in my small body told me to run. I bolted from the room and tore down the hallway, screaming louder than I ever had in my life. I could feel it coming after me, fast, without footsteps, like the shadows themselves were dragging it forward. I made it to my mom's room and shook her awake, nearly choking on panic as I pointed at the doorway. The figure stood there, but my mom didn't see it. She kept asking me what was wrong, what I was pointing at, and I couldn't understand how she didn't see the thing filling the door frame. Everything after that is just blank. I must have passed out. The next thing I remember is waking up in the morning, sunlight making everything seem normal again. After that night, it never came back. We eventually moved out of that apartment, and as I grew older, the memory slipped away like a bad dream. Years went by without me thinking about it. But a few months ago, for some reason, the memory came rushing back out of nowhere. A smell, a sound, I don't know. But suddenly it was all right there again. I told my mom about it. She just laughed. She said it must have been sleepwalking mixed with imagination. Kids see monsters in the dark. That's normal. But then I told my dad. His reaction was nothing like hers. His face went pale, and he stared at me like he wished he didn't hear what I said. He asked why I never told him when it was happening. I told him, I guess I forgot. He shook his head and whispered, "They make you forget so they can come back." He said that what I encountered wasn't pretend, that some entities latch onto children because they're easier to influence. He said it had a name he'd heard before, but the moment he said it, I can't remember it. Like the memory was ripped away the second it entered my mind. I want to believe my mom. I want to believe I was dreaming. But deep down, I know what I saw. I know what I heard. I know something real was there with me. And I know it wasn't finished. Last night, for the first time since I was 4, I woke up sitting upright at the edge of my bed. I didn't get there on purpose. I was just suddenly awake with my feet planted on the floor. Everything was silent. And then, from the darkness beneath me and that same broken voice I tried so hard to forget, I heard a whisper. Just one word. "Hey." I didn't look. I didn't respond. I pulled my legs up onto the mattress, curled into the center of the bed, and forced myself not to move. I'm older now. I understand things better, and I know exactly what it means when a voice like that comes back after so long. It remembers me. It thinks I still belong to it. Darkness spoke to me at night. Part 2. I didn't sleep for the rest of that night. Every so often, I thought I heard the slightest noise from underneath my bed. Not movement exactly, more like breathing. Not loud enough to prove anything, but too deliberate to ignore. I kept telling myself I was just psyching myself out. That childhood memories and adult stress don't mix well at 3 a.m. But every time I looked at the floor, I felt like something down there was waiting for eye contact. Morning finally came. The sunlight made everything feel ridiculous. I even forced myself to lean over the edge of the mattress and look under the bed. Nothing but dust and a pair of socks I'd been missing. I convinced myself I was fine. For about a week, nothing happened. I thought it was over again. Maybe it was a sleep hallucination. Maybe I had just remembered a nightmare too vividly and dragged it into adulthood. But then I started waking up in different positions. One night, I found myself sitting on the floor with my hands planted flat on the hardwood. Another night, I was standing in the hallway, staring at the bathroom door without knowing how I got there. Every time, the clock would read around 3 a.m. I told myself that people sleepwalk as adults too. It's not a big deal. But there was something familiar, a heaviness in the air that I remembered from childhood. I started keeping my room lit at night, a soft lamp on the dresser shining into every corner. But after the 4th night of waking somewhere other than my bed, I decided to take more precautions. I pushed everything under my bed, boxes, bins, anything, filling the space completely. I told myself if something was there, it wouldn't have room to crawl out. Or maybe that I just wouldn't have to think about the empty space anymore. That night, I slept great. Woke up exactly where I fell asleep. No interruptions. I thought I'd solved the problem. I was wrong. The next night I woke up because something fell. Not a loud crash. Just a soft thud. I sat up and rubbed my eyes. The boxes I had shoved under the bed were scattered across the room. All of them. The space beneath the bed was completely empty again. Whatever had been there as a child, it was strong enough to move things without waking me. This time, I didn't pretend it wasn't real. I grabbed my phone and went straight to my dad's house that morning, despite barely visiting him anymore. The moment he opened the door, I told him everything. The whisper, the sleepwalking, the boxes being moved. He didn't look shocked. He looked prepared. He told me entities like the one I encountered do not let go easily. They retreat when a child grows up, but if the connection remains, they return when you're vulnerable again. I asked him if he remembered the name he told me years ago. He nodded slowly. He told me that speaking its name gives it more power, that it wants to be known, acknowledged, invited back into your life. He said it once, quietly, so low I barely heard it. And just like last time, the name slipped out of my mind instantly. I don't think that's an accident. He gave me a small tin vial with a dark red symbol stamped into the metal. He told me to place it under my pillow and not to open it unless I had no other choice. I didn't ask what was inside. When I got home, I did exactly what he said. I slid it under the pillow and tried to rest even though my nerves were shot. Around 3 a.m., I woke up again. I wasn't sleepwalking. I was wide awake. Something had woken me on purpose, and I could feel a presence in the room, not under the bed this time, not hiding, standing and near the foot of my bed. I didn't want to look, but my eyes moved on their own. And there it was, darker than the shadows, tall and unmoving. Thin limbs, head tilted slightly to the side like it was studying me. I felt a freezing sensation crawl up my spine. Then I heard the voice again, deeper than I remembered, as if the years had sharpened it. You grew up, but you never left me, and I couldn't speak. Every muscle in my body locked up. My hand was inches from the pillow, from the vial, but I couldn't force myself to move. It took one long step toward me. Floors didn't creak. The room didn't stir. Just a shift in darkness as it came closer. You forgot my name, it said, so I reminded your father. My blood turned to ice. It leaned down, face inches from mine, though I could barely make out features in the dark, just the impression of a wide mouth, stretching. You were mine first. The urge to scream fought with the inability to breathe. Finally, my fingers found the tin vial under the pillow. I didn't think. I pulled it out and pressed it against the shape in front of me. The room exploded into a silence so loud it felt like it physically shook me. The figure recoiled violently and evaporated into the shadows, like its body was being yanked backward by something stronger. The air returned. My lungs opened. The darkness settled again. The vial was warm in my hand. I haven't heard the voice since. But I don't feel relieved, because every night at 3 a.m., I still wake up, not from noise, not from being touched, just awake, like something is waiting for me to move first. And now, when I look under my bed, I'm not afraid it'll be empty. I'm afraid one night, the space won't be empty anymore. I'm afraid it's only giving me time to remember its name. Darkness spoke to me at night. Part 3. For a long time, I managed to convince myself that the worst was behind me. Years passed. I built a life, a stable job, a home of my own. Eventually, I even had a family, a son. His name is Caleb. I always wondered quietly if the thing that haunted my childhood still remembered me, if it waited in dark corners or watched me sleep. But nothing ever happened. No whispers, no missing time, no movement in the shadows. I began to believe maybe the vial worked forever. Maybe it was over. When Caleb turned 5, he asked to sleep in a big kid bed, one with space underneath it. He was so proud. I wanted to say no. I wanted to build him a bed flush with the floor. But what kind of father denies his child over an old fear that he can't even prove ever happened? So I let him have it. He loved it. And for years, nothing was wrong. Then when he turned 10, he started waking up at night. Not every night at first, just occasionally, saying he had bad dreams. He'd come into my room, ask if he could sleep with us, and I let him. As a parent, you expect phases like that. But the dreams became more frequent. Then he stopped coming into our room entirely, even on nights he said he had nightmares. One morning before school, he was sitting at the table, staring into his cereal bowl. I asked if he slept okay. He said something I'll never forget. "I don't want to make him angry." He said it like a fact, like a rule. I felt a coldness wash through me. My wife looked at him with concern and asked who he was talking about. Caleb didn't answer. He got up, dumped his cereal into the sink, and walked away. I wanted to ask more. But how do you do that without sounding insane? As he got older, the conversation stopped. He never brought it up again. He stopped waking up at night, stopped complaining about nightmares. He seemed perfectly fine. Part of me was relieved. The other part realized that the worst nights of my childhood were the ones I didn't remember until much later. Time passed. Caleb grew up, and last week he turned 25. That night he asked if he could come over. No reason, just wanted to talk. We sat on the back porch after dinner, enjoying the quiet. He looked nervous, like he was preparing for something difficult. Then he finally said it. "Dad, I know you're not going to believe me." I felt my stomach twist. He took a breath. "When I was little, I used to get out of bed at night and wander around the house. Something or someone would talk to me from under the bed. Every memory I'd buried came roaring back." He described the voice, the darkness, the anger that came when he tried to tell anyone, the feeling of being followed through the house. He said it stopped when he was around 10, but just like me, the memory had recently returned without warning. And last week, the night before he turned 25, he woke up in the middle of the night, sitting upright on the edge of his bed. He said he heard breathing underneath him. Not human breathing, slow, rough, familiar. I asked him, "Shaking? What did it say?" He answered quietly, staring ahead, almost whispering. "It told me the same thing it told you." I didn't want to ask, but I had to know. "What did it say to you?" He looked directly into my eyes. "It told me I was his now." I didn't respond. There was nothing I could say. After a long silence, he reached into his pocket and set something on the table between us. My blood ran cold. It was the tin vial, the one my father gave me. The one I swore I kept hidden. The one that protected me. Caleb said he found it under his mattress when he changed the sheets last week. I didn't put it there. He didn't put it there. It was waiting. Neither of us touched the vial again. It's still sitting on my table as I write this. I don't know why it chose him. Maybe it always intended to, and maybe I was just the introduction. All night I've been thinking about what my dad said, that the name gives it power, that it wants to be known, remembered. What terrifies me most is that it never wanted to claim just a child. It wanted a family, a lineage, a legacy, and now it has two of us. We're both staying awake tonight, not because we're scared of what happens if we dream, but because we're starting to fear what happens when we wake.